Chris Hassel joined by Douzable. He's here. Your buddy Ryan Harris is there. Where? Cited tonight's game. He's in Denver for tonight's matchup. Going to be on the call on Westwood One Radio for the matchup as well. Both teams without their starting running backs in this game. Leger, is it a wash in your mind?
The way that the Colts have been running the ball this year, Chris, it's a wash, and I can't believe I'm saying that because you got to think Jonathan Taylor was Offensive Player of the Year, and that run game was massive for them last year, but they haven't been able to run the ball this year. I was going to talk about Nyheim Hines before I knew Jonathan Taylor was going to be out this game, but you have to ask Frank Reich, why haven't you gotten this guy the ball? He's an explosive guy for you. Right, last year, averaged almost 5 yards a carry. And then getting the ball out of the backfield. He averaged almost 8 yards a reception last year. That's way down this year, Chris. You talk about averaging under 3 yards a carry and under 7 yards a reception. Devontae Williams, he's literally the only back that they can depend on right now in Denver because Melvin Ingram has had issues fumbling the football. I actually asked my guy, LaShawn Shady McCoy, I do a show with him. I was like, does that get in your psyche as a running back when you fumble the ball that many times? He was like, you can't have that in the back of your mind. You got to just go out there and play with confidence. If you look at 2 weeks ago, I believe, the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Arizona Cardinals, Clyde Edwards-Helaire has been known to fumble the ball. He broke a run, Chris, and had both hands over the ball running for like 40 yards. But that throws your rhythm off. That throws how fast you can run with the football. So Melvin Ingram has to let that go and get it out of his head because he's going to be the main back tonight.
Leger, you're 100% right. And the thing I love that Nathaniel Hackett, head coach of the Broncos, told Melvin Gordon, he said, just finish plays with the ball tucked. It's so hard when any of us make a mistake, right? We're thinking 100 things. The best thing is to focus on one small detail. And for Melvin Gordon tonight, that's going to be finishing plays with that ball tucked. Additionally, the Broncos are looking for production offensively from the tight end position. They really haven't got it from Albert Okwuegbunam. Teach everybody how to say it. He hasn't stepped up. And Leger, you know, if an offense does not have a tight end that's productive, a lot of other things do not work. This is a make or break game for the Broncos. And then back to the Colts, I want to pick up one thing Leger said as well. Nyheim Hines, who, by the way, is third in rushing for the Colts behind Matt Ryan. Hopefully that changes tonight. They said that sometimes that players on the offense for Frank Reich don't know the sophistication. You cannot have an offense so intelligent your players can't run it. Nyheim Hines is a fantastic football player. You have to get him going in a big way if you're the Colts tonight.
Broncos have the better record. They're 2-2. The Colts with just one win. They also have one tie. It's interesting the narrative, how it's changed this week. The Broncos lose by 9 last week to a winless team. But it's all about, like, all the fantasy guys are like, I think Russell Wilson finally has this thing going. I think they're going to start to cook. Ryan, has that been the narrative in Denver as well, that they actually have started to turn things around even in a losing effort?
Absolutely. You got to remember, Denver really has not had a franchise quarterback for 6 years since Peyton Manning left. So they see the production, they see the drops that some of the receivers have had, and the ability of Russell Wilson to save his best punch for the fourth quarter, moving in the pocket, creating plays. So people are ecstatic about what Russell Wilson's able to achieve. Now, I'll tell you, though, Chris, watching it, I feel like you have Russell Wilson doing exactly what head coach Nathaniel Hackett wants him to do. At some point, that is going to change. At some point, Russell Wilson's going to say, hey, coach, I know what you want to do. I'm on the field. Let me get a feel for things. Give me 4 or 5 plays to choose from, and I'm going to start dialing up the play calls. That's what Ben Roethlisberger did, Peyton Manning did, even Alex Smith did when I was playing with those guys. So there is still another level. And I know fans want to see laser shows after 4 weeks in the NFL. This is a new coach with a new offense for a new player at quarterback in Russell Wilson. These things take time.
Yeah, Ryan, I agree with what you're saying, but I'm going to have to disagree with you saying that, Russell Wilson should be able to take over the play calling. If you look at this Nathaniel Hackett, it comes from the LaFleur tree, the Shanahan tree. You have to get the ball out when that back foot hits, and that's what we saw Russell Wilson do the first half versus the Las Vegas Raiders last week, and they had some success on offense. That back foot hit, he hit Cortland Sutton on the slant route. That back foot hit, he hit Jerry Jeudy down the seam. When he gets in trouble is when he starts looking guys off and then, start to, running into the backfield and then buying time. Now, it does work because it did work with KJ Hamler on the 55-yard reception late in the game, and that's sometimes when he's at his best, right, throwing that moon ball down the field. But this offense flows a lot better if he lives within the offense, running the football, and then when that back foot hits, let it go. Don't hold the ball unnecessarily when you don't have to.
It's hard to believe, as bad as the Denver offense has been this season, that there are worse offenses out there, including the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah.
They're scoring fewer points per game than the Denver Broncos. Colts are dead last in the NFL, averaging 14 points per game. Leger, what's the biggest issue right now?
It's the offensive line, to be honest with you, and it's guys that they're depending on the most. If you look at last week's film, Quentin Nelson gave up 2 sacks, one versus Nico Autry in one-on-one pass rush situations, and another time on a pass game, him and Pryor were on different levels. And Ryan, you can speak to that. If the offensive line is not on the the same page as far as passing off games, it's barbecue chicken for the quarterback back there. So Nico Autry got a sack off of that as well. This is the guy that you're depending on the most on your offensive line, and he hasn't played as well as that contract has showed. So Quentin Nelson is the issue. They haven't been able to run the ball effectively. Jonathan Taylor is a big reason. They had success last year running the football. They have not been able to do that. And then on the outside, if you look at it, Chris and Ryan, guys have not been able to get separation in one-on-one situations. Now, Paris Campbell did a little bit of that last week in the second half versus the Tennessee Titans. Also, Mo Alley Cox had a really good game in that second half. But consistency, these guys on the outside have not been able to get separation in one-on-one situations. That's why Matt Ryan and his offense has struggled. And turning the football over as well. I believe they have 9 turnovers this year, which is tied for either last or second to last in the NFL.
Well, I agree with the brilliant football mind of Leger. I'm going to add a couple of things. Absolutely, they're struggling on the offensive line. Matt Ryan's been sacked 3rd most in the NFL, 15 times. And then they really haven't gotten a pass game going outside of Pittman Jr. That's a huge problem, especially when you're not running the ball. But guys, I also got to say this. Frank Reich deserves to be in this conversation too. How many quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends are not going to be able to function in the NFL before you start looking at the head coach as the problem? Owner Jim Irsay was very clear this week that Matt Ryan and Frank Reich, as well as the front office, are really on notice because he expects better. So, yes, there are issues with the offensive line. Yes, there's issues with the consistency in the run game. I love their tight end room. I mean, those 3 tight ends last week, 11 catches, 175 yards. But Frank Reich is a huge part of this problem too. And it's very often we see in the NFL coaches who are too brilliant, too smart, too focused to try something new and actually win games. Frank Reich's job is on the line tonight at Denver.
All right, let's time for picks and props for this one. Leger, you've got props for the Colts and the Broncos.
Yeah, I do. Let's start with the Colts. Alec Pierce, you were talking about it, right? They haven't got anything going on the passing game. I think Michael Pittman Jr. will maybe be shadowed by Pat Surtain. Over 34.5 receiving yards. I believe he does that. He's done that in the last 2 weeks. If you look at the Denver side, Russell Wilson, 13.5 rush yards. He's done that the last 2 weeks. If the Colts decide to go man coverage, which they don't play a lot of, or even if they go zone, sometimes on those big, situational downs, 3rd down, he did it last week versus the Las Vegas Raiders. He scampered for 13 yards. So Russell Wilson's legs come into play. I believe he scampers for more than 13.5 rushing yards.
And he's gone up every week, and he's gone over that 13.5 number each of the last 2 weeks. All right, it is time for Stats That Matter here on CBS Sports HQ, presented by Penske. And it's Broncos unders, what we're looking at right now. We know this offense has not been good, and not just this season, but many seasons past. Going back to the start of last season, Leger, 15-6 to the under for the Broncos. And in their games, their total points combined with their opponents averaging fewer than 38 points per game.
Yeah, Chris hammered the under in this game. I mean, this is going to be a low-scoring game. Both of these offenses have really struggled. I believe the Denver Broncos only scored over 20 once, and the Colts have only scored 20 once this game. Both of these teams are at the bottom of, the NFL in scoring points per game. You see it right there. Colts at 14.3 per game, and the Broncos at 16.5. They just have not gotten the continuity on offense on both sides of the ball. Hammer the under. This score will be low tonight.
I'm with you, Leger, and we know from being players in the NFL, those Thursday night games early in the season, that is a physical obstacle you have to overcome. You're still sore. Bruises are still red from just 3-4 days ago. So you're trying to get your life together. Plus, if you're the Colts, you're traveling. And everybody knows the pressure that both of these teams are under. So I do like what Leger's saying there with the under on the short week. And I also like Russell Wilson performing at a high level. There's something about playing at home in front of your fans in prime time that brings out the best in every player. I think Russell Wilson is going to be the next case of that in the NFL this week.
Feels like both teams need it if they're going to have a successful season. It's a tight spread. Broncos favored by 3. That's home field advantage. Leger, who are you picking?
Yeah, I went back and forth on this, Chris, and because these offenses have struggled so badly this year, I'm still going to take the Denver Broncos to cover the -3.5. I mean, Jonathan Taylor out this game. Again, the Colts turned the ball over, 9 turnovers this year. I believe Ryan's right. I think Russell Wilson gets it going a little bit. Now, I am worried about Javonte Williams not playing this game, but then, what are they going to do on the outside with Cortland Sutton and then Jerry Jeudy? Do they get that going like they did a little bit last week? Does Steph Gilmore kind of follow, Pittman on the outside, and does that leave Jerry Jeudy one-on-one situations? But I think the Denver Broncos at home cover this -3.5. Russell Wilson gets it going. We'll see if Melvin Gordon can get off the snide and get out of his head, doesn't turn the football over. I think Denver covers this pretty easily.
I agree with Leger. I mean, you look at what Denver is able to absorb injury-wise that the Colts cannot. I mean, Denver still has Melvin Gordon, who knows the playbook at running back, even without Javonte Williams. Plus, they got Latavius Murray this week, who just played last Sunday for the Saints. So that's a fresh veteran who knows how to play football. And they still have Patrick Surtain on defense. I'll tell you, NFL fans enjoy watching number 2 for the Denver Broncos when they're on defense. He is a one-man defense in just his second year in the NFL. I like the Broncos here at home as well.
As bad as things have been offensively for both of these two teams, win this game tonight and you're feeling really good. If you're the Colts, you're tied for first. If you're the Denver Broncos, you're only a half game behind the Chiefs going into the weekend. Ryan Harris, Leger Douzable.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis. No yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.